That way, the many people who don't come to class can see it. All right, so we're going to talk about composition of functions today. All right, so composition of functions. All right, and composition of functions is a pretty simple idea. Normally you have a function like this, so you have some function and it says x squared plus 3. And you say, well, I would like to know what that function, what's the value of that function when I have a 4, all right? And so since in our little parentheses here, we replaced the x with a 4, any place there's an x, like right there, I'm going to put the 4, all right? And then the rest of the equation is the same. And then I do the math, so 16 to the second power is 16, I'm sorry, 4 to the second power, so the answer is 16. And so we have 16 plus 3, and that equals 19, okay? All right, so you can also have a composition of a function, all right? And so you can also say, let's add a little complexity to this. So we'll say g of x is equal to, that's not what I want, okay, is equal to x minus 4, all right? And then I can say, what is f of g of x? All right, so the same idea that we had up here, okay, I'm replacing x with 4 up here, all right, so I'm replacing or substituting. So x, wherever there's an x, I'm going to put a 4. All right, so what does that mean here? All right, so what it means here is that wherever I have, let's move this down a little bit, so I'll use the same exact example. All right. All right, so this is our f of x function, all right? F of x equals x squared plus 3. All right, same thing. All right, so now this says wherever there is an x, right, substitute or replace, okay, so we're going to, I'll use the word substitute. Substitute's a better math word. All right, so I'm going to replace that. Okay, so there's an x right there, all right? And here's what g of x is equal to. So I'm going to put g of x in there, just like I put the number there. So, but instead of a number, I'm going to put that in there, okay? And then I have to do this. Now, I can do this in my head just because I've done thousands of math problems. But you can use your Mathway calculator for it. Okay, so this is going to be equal to x squared minus 8x plus 16. All right, so this is equal to that, all right? And then we have plus 3 on the end, and so we have x squared minus 8x, and then I add these two together, and I get plus 19. All right, and so that's what f of g of x is equal to, all right? And the other way that you see this expressed, so you remember yesterday we could have, so we could say, hey, f of x minus g of x can also be expressed as f minus g of x, right? That was our lesson from Tuesday. All right, in the same way as that, there's another way to say this, f of g of x, okay, is the same as saying f with a small o, so it looks like fog. Anyway, the o is for of, so f of g of x, right? Where this one says f subtract g of x, this is f of g of x, okay? And that's called composing a function. So you put a couple of different things together and you come up with a new function. All right, so we started with these two functions. So this was function number 1. So this was function number 1, and this was function number 2. And we created or composed function number 3 by combining the two in the way that we combined it. All right, and so that is composition of functions. I realize as I look at this, of course, I'm used to looking at all these f of x's and y's and g's and all this kind of stuff. It looks like a lot of numbers here. And so let's see if we can try and make some different sense out of this, all right? So first we're going to go to this visual composition of functions right here. Okay, and notice that this has two functions on it. Maybe it'll give you a better idea of what we're talking about here. All right, so this has two graphs, f of g of x, f of x and g of x. And it says, what is f of g of 0? All right, so first we need to find what is g of 0. Okay, so first we need to find g of 0. First is, what is that? All right, so if we come down here and we see g of 0, so this is our x, right? So when x equals 0, which is right there, what does the function equal? And it equals 2. All right, so here we see that g of 0 equals 2. All right, now up here, this said, what is f of g of 0? And we just said that g of 0 is 2, so we're going to put a 2 in here and call this f of 2. Now we find 2, and what does our graph do when we have 2? When we have 2, our graph is equal to 6. All right, so we find that f of 2 equals 6, which means f of g of 0 equals 6. All right? Okay, so my answer over here is going to be 6. All right, and this shows you how to do it, right? So it shows you an example of what I just did. All right, here's your bonus for being in class today. You only need to do one of those, and I will give you credit for all 5. If you already did more than one, way to go. The bonus is you're better at math. So do one of those, because we're only going to do that one. Okay. You can also do the same thing. Composition of functions. All right, and so I'll go back on this side and get rid of this stuff. And then I want to do composition of functions. Back to this. All right, and I want to know the same thing, only I don't have a graph this time. This time I have 2 functions. All right, and so I'm going to write them down here. One is f of x equals negative 5x plus 14. And the other one says g of x equals x squared minus 2x plus 2. And then it says find f of g of negative 1. Okay. All right. So just like in the other one, the first thing we have to do is figure out what this is. What is f of g of 1? Negative 1. All right. And so we have g of x. All right. And I'm going to write it, except I'm going to leave the x's out because I'm going to fill those in. All right. And here we said, what is x g of negative 1? All right. So I'm going to put negative 1 here where the x was. I'm going to put negative 1 here where the x was. Okay. And you could put this into your Mathway calculator or do this in your head. Negative 1 squared is pretty easy. That's 1. Negative 2 times negative 1 is pretty easy. That's positive 2. And then we add 2. So that's equal to 5. Okay. Then the next thing you have to do is, now it said, what is f of g All right, it says, what is f of g of minus 1? Okay, now we know that that is 5, right? So this is 5. So what we want now is f of 5. All right, and f was minus 5x plus 14. So we're going to put this 5. This 5 goes right there where that x is. So we have minus 5 times 5 plus 14. And that's a minus 25 and a plus 14. That gives me a negative 11. All right. Everybody happy with that? Let's put negative 11 in over here and see if it's the right answer. I do make mistakes, especially when I go quickly and I don't check my work. But that happened to be right. All right, is there a way to do this problem? And let's go to our next problem. All right, now we're on to composition of functions. All right, and I already did this and got the right answer, but I'm going to show you how to do this on your MathWay calculator. All right, so let's look at this. Okay, so this says G, let's look at this. Okay, it's important. What does it say? What does this say? All right, this says G of F. All right, so this says put F into G. All right, so we're going to take this and we're going to put it into the X right there. All right, and we're going to use parentheses, and all we're going to do is come up with an X. All right, all right. All right, and so let's see. So I'm going to put the negative sign, and then I'm going to put x squared minus x and plus 11, and then minus 4. Okay, so let's look at that again, just so we're sure about what I just did. Okay, all right, so I wanted to take, this said put F into G. All right, so I'm going to take F and I'm going to put it right there where the X is. All right, and that's what I did. So I took my parentheses, I took the X out and I put this parentheses in there, and that's what I got. Okay, and then I hit enter and it does the answer for me, which is x squared plus x minus 15. I did this with the other class, so my correct answer was already there. Okay, let's go to the next one. All right, actually I'm going to stop here and